So about a year and a half ago, I used to work for Amscot. It's like a credit-free cash advance debt collection service. And I was younger than everybody there. And they knew who I was. They knew that I lost all this weight. They knew I did this social media, and they knew about me. And they would come up to me and be like, Enzo, I'm trying this keto, I'm trying this carnivore diet, and it's not really working. Like, I don't really know why it's not working. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm getting too old, my metabolism and all this. And, not only was I younger than them, but through your whole life, regardless of your weight loss journey or whatever journey you have, people are always going to try to undermine your success. Not out of malintent, but as cope and, as an excuse as to why they can't do it. It is very frustrating, especially for me. Like, I hear all the time when I'm talking about diet stuff with other people, they'll say, oh yeah, but you got that young metabolism and whatever, and you're young and you got all this time. Like, not really, bro. Because I used to be really fat. I used to be obese. So, and I don't have a lot of time, really. I work full time. I go to college full time. I try to do this, and people will always try to undermine your success as a form of cope, not as malintent to you. So never be too offended by that. But anyways, they will come up to me, talk about these diets and why it doesn't work. And so if you think that metabolism and age and time and these resources is a problem for you and it's why you can't lose weight, then this video is for you. All right, so I have person A and person B here. They both have the same metabolism, the same age, the same time, resources available, same human biology, right? But one is lean and one is overweight. So how can that be possible, right? So the way your body works and the way weight loss works is that your body needs fuel to do the daily activities that it needs in its life, right? So not even things like cardio in the gym, of course, obviously, but also things like your heart beating, your eyes blinking, the blood flow in your body, everything that your body's functions needs energy, right? So it gets that energy in the form of food, all right? The fuel comes in the form of food. And then your body uses it in the form of energy expenditure, right? It expends that energy with fuel from the food. So if you give your body more food than it needs, it's going to have more energy than it needs, and therefore won't need to use it all for its daily functions, its daily necessities. And it's going to take that extra energy from the food that you ate and store it on your body as fat, all right? It's stored energy. So, and that's weight gain, right? If you eat less food than your body needs, and therefore make it expend more energy than is available through the food that you gave it, it's going to be forced to tap into the fat stored on your body, and therefore leading to you getting leaner and losing weight, right? Because your body has to function, right? It has to live. It's not going to let you die just because you didn't eat enough food that day. It's going to tap into the energy stored in your body. So here's a chart that I made just to show like how that energy really gets subdivided. Around 60 to 70%, believe it or not, is just BMR, basal metabolic rate. All right, this is things like your heart beating, your eyes blinking, just basic bodily functions that your body is just keeping you alive throughout the day. It uses up a lot of energy. And then 20 to 30% is going to come from movement. So that's extra things like cardio, walking, running, going to the gym, lifting. And then 10% is going to be digestion. Because your body still needs energy, ironically, to break down the food in your body to get energy from it. It's not going to take up that much. It's around 10%, maybe a little less. I also said 60 to 70% for the basal metabolic rate because it's true. People's metabolism are different. Somebody's metabolism when they're pre-adolescent is going to be a lot different than somebody's that is way older than them. But that 60 to 70% difference is going to be so insignificant that it's going to be around 50, maybe 100 calories in the day of difference. So what does that look like? So each of these, there's a banana and an Oreo and a piece of bread, right? The banana, all these are going to be 60 to 70 calories. So even if the metabolism is different in somebody that's pre-adolescent and somebody that's a lot older, you're going to tell me that really, like, the reason you can't lose weight, the reason you can't get lean, and I can, is because of a difference of half a freaking Oreo or half a banana or a piece of white bread, one, throughout the whole day? Like, you think that's going to make that much of a difference? Of course not. Of course not. That's not going to affect drastic terms of weight loss in terms of like an 80-pound, 70-pound weight loss journey. It's not because of the metabolism. It's going to make such an insignificant difference that It's really just cope, right? Like I said. And depending on your lifestyle, metabolism is different because you can have a high metabolism because there's more muscle on your body. So, for example, if you play soccer or you go to the gym and you lift heavy, right? You are going to, of course, you're going to burn more energy throughout the day because your body is trying to support all that activity that you're doing. And if you're lifting weights especially, you're going to start to put muscle on your body, a lot more muscle than somebody who's living a sedentary lifestyle, working like an office job, right? So when you lift, you're going to put on muscle, and this muscles helps you eat more throughout the day because you need more energy, right? So yeah, somebody with less muscle and a sedentary lifestyle has to eat less because they have a lower metabolism, but because of the muscle on their body that they have not built, not because of their age. So like I said before, there's a lot of different kinds of diets. People will come to you and say like, oh, I'm going to try keto. I'm going to try this carnivore. I'm going to try this low-fat diet. Like, it might work, but there's a reason it works. And there's a reason why all of these diets is like stereotypical keto, carnivore, these different types of diets, Mediterranean, whatever. There's a reason they're all pretty much the same. All right, they differ in terms of micronutrition and what you're actually eating, of course. But in terms of weight loss results, they are all the same. So whenever one of these diets works, there's a reason it works, okay? And it's not because somebody responds better to keto and somebody responds better to low-fat diets. It's not, oh, our bodies are different, so we're going to respond better to different diets. No, that's not true. That's just not how it works. Your body, the reason it works is because, for example, if somebody's doing keto, or I've colored in the different macronutrients here. And just for this example, assume that, this pie chart of food, this full pie chart, is about what you need to maintain your current weight. So basically, like, this pie chart here is your normal day of eating, and this pie chart, they're the same, but it's like this amount of food is what you need to maintain your current weight, right? So when you're doing keto, the person's going to get rid of all the carbs, right? And it's going to be extremely low to zero carbs. And they end up losing weight, right? And what happens is not because, oh, carbs are the enemy or it's working because you're doing keto. It's because you are cutting out a third of what you're eating throughout the day. Not necessarily a third, but you're just getting rid of all the carbs in your diet. And that's going to make up a lot of what you're eating, especially somebody that eats a lot of carbs in their day. Like imagine somebody eats bread and cereal and donuts or whatever all the time throughout the day, and then you put them on keto. Like they're gonna respond so differently because they're gonna eat way less of what they were already eating before. So their calories are stooping extremely low, and then they're gonna end up losing weight. Same thing with low fat. You're cutting out an entire food group of fat, right? And this is going to result in a calorie deficit as well. Same thing with carnivore. It's very similar to keto, but you're cutting out an entire food group of carbs, those processed carbs, right? So this is where the misconception comes in. People think that it's all these fad diets that are working and that their bodies are responding differently, but that's not the case at all. It's because you're eating less calories than you burn. That's what's, similar about all these. And then, last we have here the portion control diet. This is just tracking your calories, being in a calorie deficit, eating lower portions so that you're in less calories, but keeping all the food groups. Ideally, that's what you should be doing. And that's why it can work, right? That's why some people respond so positively, because they're doing it right? And here's why it doesn't work, right? It's not always going to work, but not because you don't respond well to keto or because you don't respond well to low fat or carnivore. You're not meant for a particular diet. The reason it doesn't work is because when you cut out all those carbs, you're going to eat a ton more protein and a ton more fat to overcompensate for that stuff. And you think that just because you're removing the carbs and getting rid of that entire food group, that you're going to lose weight. And that's not the case at all, right? Same thing with a low fat. If you're getting rid of an entire food group and then you overcompensate with protein and carbs, right? You're still in a surplus. You're still eating a lot more than what you should be eating because your body's still getting more energy than it needs. It doesn't matter that you're cutting out fat or cutting out carbs, right? They're not the enemy. It's just that total energy, right? Same thing with portion control. This example here, what I tried to draw here is like, sometimes people, when they try to do portion control, do calorie deficit, although it's the right path, they will stoop drastically lower than what they should be doing. So, they'll go to something crazy like 1,000 or 1,200 calories a day. And that stuff's not sustainable, right? It'll last maybe 1, 2, maybe even 3 days. And then even if it does last, you're not gonna last, right? You're gonna come back stronger and harder than ever in terms of eating. You're gonna completely crash out, and you're gonna end up eating way more than you were before. And it's just gonna end up making you gain weight in the long run, right? All right, so how many calories do you actually need throughout the day, right? This is the most important thing when it comes to weight loss. And I'll show you, it's very simple. There's a lot of calculators that go way more in depth to what I'm about to show you, but this works fairly well for basically anyone. So let's take somebody that's 180 pounds as an example, and you can take their body weight and multiply it, depending on your goals. So for example, you want to go at a moderate weight loss pace, you're going to take the body weight, which is 180, and multiply it by 12. And this is roughly how many calories you should be consuming throughout the day to lose weight. It would be 2,160 in this case. 2,200, 2,100 is not going to be that drastically difference. You consume 2,200 calories when you're supposed to consume this. This is why I talk about why metabolism makes really insignificant difference, makes no difference at all. Because long term, if you're consuming 2,100 to 2,200, you're going to get the same results, right? It's about consistency. So same thing, if you want to rapidly lose weight, you'll multiply it by 11. It'll be even lower than that number. And you want to gain weight, 15, 2,700, right? This is just an example. So yeah, if you're 160 pounds, take these numbers, multiply it depending on your goals, and you can gain or lose weight. It's really as simple as that. For protein, right? Why does protein matter? Protein matters because this is how muscle is built, right? Muscle thrives on the protein that is in your body. So when we lose weight, we don't want to go from this overweight, obese person. We don't want to look like this skinny fat dude right here. Because although the number's dropping on the scale and you turn into a twig, you might not be very healthy. You're getting rid of a lot of muscle, you're losing a lot of fat. And that's really what can happen when these people do these drastic diets. Like, I'm gonna fast for 7 days. I'm gonna cut out carbs and everything. Like, this is what can happen if you do drastic changes and you don't account for the protein going into your body. So how much protein do you need? It's very, very simple, right? You'll see all these ranges like, 0.8 to 1.2 kilograms of body fat. Like, just keep it simple. Roughly the amount of protein that you need is going to be 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you weigh 180 pounds, how much protein are you going to need, bro? You're going to need about 180 grams throughout the day. All right, it sounds like a lot. It's really not. It's really not. If you include a source of protein in every meal or as a snack, there's a lot of things like eggs, egg whites, chicken breasts, ground beef, steak, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, just there's protein in so many different foods. You don't have to get bored, and there's never going to be a scarcity in protein sources. So yeah, you want to make sure you're getting that protein in, and weight training so that you can lean out and actually lose the weight and get to this instead of being skinny fat. But yeah, guys, like, the main two things that you need to be focused on is protein and calories. If you're trying to lose weight, you got to make sure you're getting the protein in and the calories. And, go for it. If you want to do keto, low fat, carnivore diets, go for it. But, that's really more going to affect the micronutrients going into your body and your health and how you're feeling. But ultimately, what matters and what is always going to matter, not dependent on your age or your metabolism or your gender or your religion, bro, or whatever the hell, calories are always going to be what determines if you're going to lose weight or gain it, all right? There is going to be no alternative. There is no, my body responds better to keto, my body responds better to fat loss, to low fat, carnivore, portion control, all right? And just some words of encouragement here, guys. Like, you're always going to have people in your life undermining whatever you're doing. You know, there is so much knowledge available on social media and just everywhere in the world that you can get to your goals if you need to. We have AI now, bro. We have ChatGPT. Like, we have so many resources at our disposal that you don't need to be doing these crazy things. All the knowledge is just at your disposal. It's just at your hands. Like, anybody can lose weight if they really want to. And they don't have to be doing these drastic measures or giving up because they assume that their metabolism or age is stopping them from doing so. All right, guys. So, yeah, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want more content like this. But, yeah, let me leave a comment down below if you have any questions.